Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Santa's Switch Adapted Toys. This is going to be an interesting one. You really need to be determined if you want to adapt the Uno Attack. Now, the Uno Attack card shuffler or distributor, if you will, you load the cards in, they pop up out here, and those are kind of random. I've opened this up, and you can't do a pre test to demonstrate a demonstration of it, but I've opened it up so that we can get access to the switches. And normally you would press this yellow switch and it would activate the toy. So let's turn the toy on. We've got batteries in it. You can see the lights come on. And so normally you would press this switch. When this goes down, it contacts some switches that are on a circuit board in here. And you can, if I get this right, you can see the switches there, the two silver blocks, which represent the switches. And I don't know if we can fully get, this is going to be, I'll probably try to add some photos in here for clarity. But because there's no screws on the outside of this to get this separated, both red parts have been pressed onto and into receivers on all the black components and on themselves, and you can't get it apart. It's glued together. You can't get it apart. So if you want to access these switches to do a switch adapting, you need to pry this open, and I've discovered where the switches are that we're going to adapt to, so you can do it with maybe without quite as much destruction as I do. You can see here some discoloration where I pried it. You're going to have that. I pretty much guarantee you're not going to be able to avoid some discoloration. And this part here, again, for contrast, I can't. Okay, so this lip, this section right here, this lip section goes underneath there. So it's actually covered in. So when I pried this out, this part came from underneath this other black part. And it's pretty tight. I'm going to activate this toy now that it's turned on by putting a screwdriver in and pressing down one of the button switches inside. So can we see? And I don't know if this autofocus is going to work on the camera, but there is a button switch right there. And on this side, another button switch. Okay, so this is a random toy. It's not going to do every action every time. Instructions indicate it may or may not give you a card. It's always going to make a noise to indicate something. And then randomly it's going to distribute a card, going to pop up out of that slot. Okay. Because these are two square block printed circuit board mounted switches, we have a great advantage, but your soldering skills may be at risk. I'm going to demonstrate here on a drawing how these two blocks are set up. So this is the outside. This is what we're looking at. We're looking down this way, essentially, at those switches, okay? And we see them in there. We see the silver contact points for where they're mounted to the circuit board, and that's represented on my drawing here by these 8 little wings that come out. In order for this switch to activate, I don't want to mark this up too badly with my big black marker, but in order for this switch to activate, cross this one and this one, or this one and this one. So across this switch is what activates it. For soldering purposes on here, and because their two switches are working functionally the same way, they're tied together so that there's an even pressure on this yellow lever when it comes down. If you attach your wires to this is the front. I'm going to call this the front. This is the outside of that. See, we're holding this up this way, right? So this is the front. Okay. From the front of that, if you attach your wire to a front one on this side and a back one on this side, you're going to be able to activate the toy with an adaptive switch. Or if your soldering skills are a little tight for that one, that's okay. You can attach to the front one on this side and the back one on this side. I chose for my particular soldering to put my soldering on the inside, and I chose, let's see, what did I choose? I chose this one and this one. Okay. So my cable then runs off and attaches to here and here. And this effectively is, again, crossing that switch. Okay, either one of these. So, soldering skill. Here's a pencil to demonstrate. We do not have much room to get into here with our soldering iron. Get my soldering iron out here, and you can see here that we do not have a whole lot of room to get in and solder. You can see on this side, I drilled one hole thinking my cable was going to go in, and then I realized that because of the depth of this flange on here, I might interfere with the cable, so I drilled another hole. I'm going to suggest you drill it up as far as you can. I always tie a knot in my cables. And here again, I just don't know whether or not we're going to be able to see that at all. You can see the red cable there, a bundle of knot up next to the wall. So that's my strain relief to keep the cable from coming out. Again, I soldered it with this configuration. And once I've done that, I'm going to hook up my adaptive switch. I have a test switch off camera. It's actually mounted to the side of my table, so I can't just like bring it up and demonstrate it here. Let's see, is this thing turned off or on? It times out after a bit. Okay, so now the toy is activated, and I press the adaptive switch, and it's going to cycle up and do whatever it does. So there, it just distributed a card. So it took 4 presses of either this switch or your adaptive switch for it to distribute a card. And it's random. There's one time it did not, another time it did not, a third time no distribution of a card, fourth time no distribution of a card, fifth time nope, sixth nope. There you go. So, and this time it took 7 cycles to do it. But as you test this to verify that you've got your switch right, every time you punch the adaptive switch, or this one, if this is back together, it's not back together. So punching this does nothing because this is pulled too far away from it. Okay, so how did we get here? I've demonstrated where to put the contacts on the toy, expose it so that we can do it. We are blessed with this toy that, unlike a bubble machine, a single press release of the button, of the adaptive button, activates it, does its cycle. So to get there, inside the toy, in the card compartment, is 4 screws. And I removed them, but I do not know whether there was any value to removing them. You can see the receptacle there at the bottom where there's 3 of them visible. The fourth one is more up to right down in here. And I'm hoping that having removed those screws, which are in this cup, I relieved that bottom enough that I could pull it out. The problem with this bottom is it is a bottom that comes through, single piece of plastic, hard plastic that comes through, and then is also molded in for the battery compartment, okay? So there's just no, you're just really flexing this far enough that you can get this open. To get it open, pry it. There's nothing else. I have a kit of automotive tools for trim, removing trim on the, to install wiring and behind the trim molding in your car, installing, particularly in this case, cameras for dash cams, front and back. So from that kit, I pulled one of these tools. This is another tool that you can see is pretty well beat up because it's been used and abused, and it's a softer material for opening up electronic devices, small electronic cabinet boxes to get into it. I use it when I'm adapting my remote control switches for turning on Christmas lights. Anyway, so you're going to, and also, let's see, another tool that you may end up with is a flat screwdriver. You're going to have to pry this apart. This black part is captured inside the red part on the side. Here you can see that the red is even with the black here. And because of my having pried it apart, that's got this gap here, but it's got this captured black flange that's inside of this. So you're going to have to pry this apart. We're going to have to get into here, and whatever means that you've got to pry into that and expose it and move it to the side on both sides enough that you can then pry this part out from underneath that extrusion here. And you can see it's slightly damaged. I was as diligent as I could be. But even with that, you can see I got some slight damage there. I don't know whether that was I don't know whether this damage was at the soldering point where my soldering iron touched it, or whether it was at the pry point. It looks like it might have been where the soldering iron touched it. So having adapted that, first thing I'm going to do putting it back together is make sure that my wires inside, the cable wires, when I close this box back up, do not interfere with the switches, the factory switches. And then I'm just going to, let's see, I have to pry this out enough. I don't know, I haven't tried putting this back together yet. So let's see what happens when I do. I'm going to pry this out enough, hopefully, that when I push this back down, it's not going to be as easy as I thought. Again, you want to do this toy, you have to do it with some determination. You have to really want to do it. It's not going down. I'm not sure what. Let's see. That post in there matches up with. Okay. I see a post way down in here that probably matches up with that, with this top screw that was over here. Okay. Over in this area. And it might not be lined up. Okay. Let's try this side. Okay, so this side's going down easier, but I haven't got it underneath. I can't get it underneath this very well. I need a real thin. I need a real thin part here. Let's see. This will be a fiddly one. Got the side, but I just do not have the end. You may determine that you're going to just leave it open, this part on the outside. I don't know, but it depends on your frustration level. So still working with it here. This is not one that I would normally offer to do. There was a special request to how could it be done? How do you gain access to it? So I gave it an attempt. And this is what I've come up with so far. I've got that side. Oh, this is close. This is close. I've got that side. Oops. Boy, that thing flipped all the way off the table. Okay. Just about got this side where I can maybe get this to go in. All right. So that side, you can kind of see where it's popped in. Oops, I'm sorry. Off camera. So this side's where it's kind of popped in, but because I can't line this up very well, I'm going to have to, I guess, just force it. See if it'll go in. Going in that far. I think I'm almost able to get that there, but it's not. Something inside. Let's see, are we still? Yeah, we're still activated if we punch that. Somewhere inside, I have missed the opportunity to get this side lined up. Relook at this. So the screw here lines up with something that's about in this vicinity that I'm not right now getting to line up very well. And unless I can get that part to line up properly, the lever here won't work because it's not reaching down to our buttons. Okay. Plastic on plastic, it seems to slip pretty quickly. If you're still with me on this video, then you are dedicated. You are dedicated. Don't know where to push on it to get it to whatever that part is to line up, and I just don't see. I wonder if there's a possibility I can go inside and press on that protrusion that I saw and get it. Okay, I think that might have done it. Let's find out here. I'm holding it in so that it won't accidentally pop out. I thought that I had it. Okay, okay. Okay, all right. That is now just about back together. Let's put this pry on it again. Okay. So I failed on something here, folks. We have a functioning toy, but I can't. Not only is it not lining up, let's let's hold everything stable here so nothing is shifting that we normally would shift, and I have a rattle inside. Oh, there it is. Oh my word. Okay, this is going to be a complication. That right there is the screw that would have been in underneath here so that we could hold the battery case on. The battery. These two go together. That screw is supposed to be inside of there. And because it was only set in place when this was assembled, it is now not in its position. And as far back as it is, I have no idea how we would put that screw back in. So there's a failure right there on that. Somehow in our working with this thing, we loosened up how that screw was set in. Further, I am not able to fully push this black part down far enough for the red sides to come together. I'm going to try to see if I can pull it together by putting this screw in. Let's see, I gotta line that screw up past the. Okay, let's try it. Let's get my reverse tweezers on it here. And try not to lose it. That screw goes in there. No, that did not tighten it up. Somewhere on here, I've got some interference. This black case is not far enough in. Okay, so if we ignore those two failures, the question is, does it still activate as factory intended? Yes. Okay, so okay, just distributed the car. I do not know if this microphone is picking up all of the noises that are being made here, but every time this yellow lever gets pressed, the toy activates, lights up, blinks, and makes a sound. Periodically, at random, it distributes a card. Okay. The same thing occurs if I use the remote adaptive switch. So in the sense of adapting the toy, it's a success. In the sense of being able to put it back together as if it has not been adapted, this is not something that I would be doing and offering to the public. Okay, but it's something that you may want to do just so you have it. The battery box no longer has the ability to see, I'm not sure why that's not batteries are there. Okay, the battery box no longer has the ability to use this screw to close it, so you're going to have to tape over it, because the screw that was in there is on my finger, spare part. Okay, that's what I learned. So if you want to do this, that's a way of getting it done. I wish you the best of luck. Let's see. Oh, there's another aspect to it, because the way the battery is set up, if this battery box is not closed down completely, this button here, part of it, again, because this isn't closed down like it should, this is going to interfere because it's proud of these other 4 buttons. It rocks on it. When I set this down, I noticed that it's rocking. It's rocking on that center button. For this demonstration, I'm going to eliminate that button. I'm going to scrape it off, melt off the top. We could cut it off with a knife, but I've got a soldering iron that's holding at 300 degrees. And let's see what happens when I just melt it down. See if I can't get it out of the way. Okay. That does, that did it. It's with that button gone. It now sets level to the table without rocking too badly. Okay. So that's it. Your level of determination as to how you want to do this. It can be done. I don't in order to save this part here, I would not have removed, I would not remove this battery cover while this is being opened up. That way this will stay there. Okay. It'll stay in place. Put this batteries in if you want to test it. Close it back up. Keep this in place all the time that you're working so that this nut doesn't fall out. All right, so there it is. If you like my videos, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Like and subscribe, and you'll see them when they come up on YouTube. So thank you again for this is Santa Jerry with Santa Switch Adaptive Toys. You have a wonderful day. Bye. And okay, here's an addendum. So I was able to, with much struggling, realize a couple of things. The reason that my case would not come back together here, not quite sure on this side, but come back together here, and this was sounding so proud, was because the speaker had shifted a little bit, and it impeded the black part being pushed in far enough for this to recess. Okay, so that has now been fixed. Still damage up there. Off camera, I've got my switch. It activates the toy. It does what it's supposed to do. Okay. And it just shuffled and distributed a card. The factory switches still work. You can see here that this damage here and here was my soldering. My soldering iron touched it. Also some pinching with the screwdriver. So this was fixed. The speaker had to be carefully aligned. When you take this apart, that speaker is going to shift. It just drops out of it. It's not glued in place. So when you put it back together, you need to make sure that the speaker is properly set. I also took the trouble to get back behind there and put the nut back in place, which was kind of a difficult thing. I glued the nut onto the length of tie wrap, slid it in there, and ran the nut, put the screw out of the case, and used just it to then pull that nut back up into position, and left it there while I closed the case back up. And now the nut is properly held in place, and the battery box can be closed properly without having any extra stuff. So without the tape, other incidental damage to it. Again, this is not a toy or a device that I'm going to offer. But with diligence, determination, if you want to, let's see, can you watch those wheels at all? Let's see if those wheels are visible during, yeah, there we go. Okay, so that's the card distribution. It pops a card up. So there's an update on what the issues are. No matter what happens, whether you properly put this on or leave this on when you do this so you don't lose that nut, I highly suggest. I had very difficult to get that back in. You're going to have the shifting of the speaker when you put this back together. Okay, so removing those 4 interior screws that were pointed out earlier, they're in the tray, does allow for this to be flexed out enough to do the work in here as described by the previously in the drawing. Okay, so let's see where we are on. I've got too many windows open on my computer. Oh yeah, we're still there. Okay, so it functions properly. It's been adapted. Wish you the best of luck. Let me know if you actually do one of these. It'll be interesting to see how your experiences were. All right. Again, thank you very much, Santa Jerry, for Santa Switch Adapted Toys. You have a wonderful day. Like and subscribe.